It's not about sprinkling joy on top of utility. No, it's not about confetti. It's not about Easter eggs as we might think about. The real delight is when you use a product and you realize that I'm getting the functional needs and I'm also getting a lot of emotional needs while using the product. Ideally, your roadmap has to look like 50% low delight. Why not 40% is deep delight? And it's only 10%. It's only 10%. For why not those smile moments? It was really hard for me as a PM to kill the feature because we tried our best. It just didn't work on one skin tone.
AI right now, at the way it's going, it's streamlining everything. So how do you get out of this?
The race is not about who's going faster. It's about who's keeping their emotional roots.
Bonjour and welcome back to The French Product. Is your product just functional or is it actually memorable? We live in a world of KPIs and we often forget the human on the other side of the screen. Today's guest is Nesrine Changuel. She's a PhD engineer turned product leader who literally held the title PM for Delight at Google. She helped scale everything from the group video calls at Skype to video features at Spotify to Google Meet's growth after COVID hit. And she says most PMs are looking at their roadmaps wrong. Plus, she wrote a book, this book, and it's great. We're diving into her 50-40-10 roadmap framework, the concept of deep delight, and why emotional connection is the ultimate competitive advantage at the age of AI. Let's dive in. Nesrine, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm interested, you started with a PhD and you've worked at DeepTech at Bell Labs. That's very left brain work. So how did a hardcore engineer, become the person that's teaching us about soft emotions?
Interesting. Yes. So first, hi, Cedric. I'm excited to talk about this today. Thank you for being so interested in bringing emotions into tech. I know we're not so many. So when it comes to my beginning, I, of course, did like an electrical engineering degree that was in Grenoble. And then I was actually not very much sure what to do with that degree. So I did a quite special PhD. It's an industrial PhD, meaning that I was spending 70% of my time in a company, which was Alcatel-Lucent at that time, which is called Nokia nowadays, and about 30% of my time in a lab, which for me was a very convenient setup because it allowed me to have one leg in academia and one leg into industry, and then know exactly what exactly brings me passion or joy or whatever. So that was my PhD, and even after my PhD, I started working as a research engineer at Bell Labs. So I spent about 5 years doing research. And what is special about being a researcher is that, yes, you work quite alone, like from an individual perspective, but also you work in a community. So that's something quite special that maybe a lot of people are not aware about. Which means that, for example, when you have a proposal for a research solution, you get it reviewed by your community. You get your paper reviewed by a lot of different people. You get perspective. You travel the world to present your prototype or your invention in different city in the world. And that was something that I enjoyed a lot because that contact, like human contact, which is very different from the stereotype of researchers working alone, is something that brought me a lot of joy, brought me a lot of a connection, human connection, etc. But there was one thing in my research time that I missed a lot, which is how do this prototype end up into the user's hands? Because I was working in the R department, not an R&D department, like a real research. And when the prototype was successful and seen successful by Bell Labs, it had to be handed over to the development department. And I completely lost the sight of whether it's really implemented or not. Is anyone loving it? Is anyone hating it? So I had to explore what could be a job or a role that could allow me to see this 360 degree. And so, of course, that's how I moved to product management. Now, your question is how this research, like a pure research, got me to emotion. I think it's not a one-step thing. It's not like from research that I inherited that background. It's over time. It's by working in research combined with working at Skype, combined working at Spotify, combined with working on Google Meet in a COVID time where we've seen the huge an importance of emotion in such special time that gave me that full view that, hey, we need to shift our mind from being only functional into functional plus emotional. So that's how I get to there.
That's amazing. And so was there a specific moment, maybe a product launch or a failure, where you realized that, being functional wasn't enough?
Yeah, so throughout my career, the very first real product I worked on was Skype.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the real Skype, like the blue Skype, the iconic Skype with the ringtone that I guess you're already hearing in your mind.
It's there in my mind.
And I love that time because for me, Skype was by far more than a product. It was a pure emotional connection. Every time I talk about Skype, people are jumping into the conversation saying, yeah, I met my best friend on Skype. I met my even my loved one or my husband on Skype. So there are always human stories behind Skype. And when I joined Skype, the very first feature we developed was group video call. So when I joined Skype, it was only 101. Like just maybe an age revealer here, but just to tell you the story, how we enhanced the product to make it even more human. And for me, living abroad and very far away from my family was such a big step to have this conversation with families and friends and feel less lonely in Scandinavia, which is very far away from where my family live.
I was in the same situation because I've moved to so far 10 different countries and I was always far away from my family. And honestly, Skype played a huge role in me keeping in touch, with my family.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be 20 years older. I know we wouldn't have had, that ability to talk to the grandparents and even stay in touch with my parents. I spent 10 years not being in the same country as my parents. So
yeah, indeed. Like Skype was more than a product. And the reason, even just to justify what I'm saying, even after when Skype started to decline, people kept saying, let's have a Skype call, even if it's on WhatsApp. And that concept has a name. It's called enthemeria. So enthemeria, when you say like, let's Google it on Bing, or let's Skype on WhatsApp, or you start to use a noun as a verb, it means that it get into the user's life more than just the usage. So that's my very beginning into understanding what it means to create emotional connection. And then guess what? I moved to Spotify, which is even more into that field of being much more functional and like bring the joy and the comfort and the happiness that people are looking for.
Yeah.
And so what I learned during my Spotify time is that I was a PM for a quite technical team. The team was actually owning transcoding, which means that we actually receive raw music and raw podcasts from our labels and our podcasters, and then we have to transcode them into format that are applicable and usable by everyone. And so from the title, it feels very technical, but the reason why I'm telling this story is because my backlog was, of course, filled and busy with technical features, but we managed to create a lot of emotional features as well. We squeezed in, like maybe you're familiar with Canvas. So Canvas is when you open Spotify, and instead of having an image, you have a mini clip, like a 5-second looping clip. And that's something that we squeezed into a very busy backlog because we wanted and we were convinced that the product has to have a brand, has to have a personality. We wanted to offer more than just sound in the app. And then, since we're talking about moments, there was even a more intense high moment in my career, which is when I moved to Google Meet. Actually, I moved to Google Meet right when pandemic hit the world, like when COVID started, like exactly the right time. And it's not the best time, of course, to start into Google Meet because it was quite intense from we needed to make it scale. Like we moved from 100% in office to 100% remote. And you know what? And that's maybe what most people don't know. I spent the first 2 to 3 months not working on what feature to build. But do you know what? I was working on understanding the emotional impact of this new behavior. What impacted you emotionally by moving from working in the office into having back-to-back meetings?
Yeah.
And you know what? We identified a lot of emotional negative impacts that we had to solve. So everything we solved started from identifying those emotional motivators. And that's how Google Meet is what it is today.
Nice. So your whole concept and the book that you wrote is about delight.
Yes.
What is delight?
So what is delight? So you heard me talk about emotional connection, and emotional connection is not a new topic, by the way. Like if you talk to a designer, they will tell you the best design is the emotional design.
Yep.
If you talk to marketers, they will tell you the best ads and the best marketing campaigns are the emotional marketing campaigns, right? But here's the thing. When I started thinking about this concept of emotional connection in business and in product, I realized that so far, not many people cares. We care about numbers, we care about KPI, we care about objectives. And that's the biggest challenge. Like you have marketers talking about emotion, designers talking about emotions. And guess what? In the middle, nobody cares. So my mission was to make sure that this topic is universal across function. Like everyone has to talk about it so we can achieve it. Otherwise, we lose the sight and we lose the goal. So my very first mission is to bring this topic cross-function. Now, why calling it delight? Is because every time I talk to product leader or product director, they all agreed on one thing. Literally, they say this sentence, we need to delight our customers. I guess you heard that so many times, right? But here's the thing. They all agree on the goal, but they all also don't know how to. I also found that there is a need to clarify the how-to. So that's why I'm calling it delight in the product space. But also, if you ask about what it is about creating products where we blend both emotional dimension and function dimension into the core experience. It's not about sprinkling joy on top of utility. No, it's not about confetti. It's not about Easter eggs, as we might think about. All these are like misconceptions and mis-ideas. The real delight is when you use a product and you realize that I'm getting the functional needs and I'm also getting a lot of emotional needs while using the product. We can talk about examples later on, of course.
Yeah, no, but that makes total sense. What really struck me with the book is that it makes something that usually is intangible actually tangible. Because yes, you do hear people talking about, yes, we need to delight customers, but most people, as you said, they don't know how to, and they don't know what to measure as well. And that's something that is hard to pinpoint. And so after being at Skype, Spotify, Google, which of those cultures did you find, hardest to take delight seriously?
So when I was working on these companies, I was not very much into this concept of delight. I didn't even give it a name. I was working on it as if it's a normal way of building products. It was only when I gave a talk about 4 years ago on a stage. I was giving a talk about how we bring emotion into the products. And someone on stage asked me hey, Nesrine, since you've been an insider on these companies, can you tell us if there's anything in common between these companies and in the way how they build products? And that was the moment, think about it as a epiphany or whatever. I felt that, hey, yes, there's something in common. All those companies invest heavily into creating emotional connection between their products and their users. So that was the moment that was of course there's something in common. Yes, of course I can talk about it even more. And I need to bring it outside of this luxury tech word, because people see that, of course you work for Spotify. Of course you work for Google Meet. So of course you can afford having emotional connection. And my answer is no, they are Google, they are Spotify because they invest in emotional connection. So that's my view on the topic. But when it comes to how to distribute yourself, I'm going to share something maybe I haven't shared before. When I worked for Google Meet, I was the PM for Delight.
Yeah.
So my mission as a product manager at that time was to make sure that Google Meet is delightful. And I totally understand that not all company can afford the luxury of having an entire team, an entire PM working on such a mission. But I usually refer much more to my time at Spotify because that's where I was not the PM for delight. I was not the PM for emotional connection, but we realized a lot of great combination of function and emotion into the backlog. So it is doable. if we give the right dose. So if we distribute our work in a good way, then we can achieve that delight objective.
Gotcha. Well, you actually talk about your 50-40-10 rule for your roadmap. And if a team is behind on their targets and stressed, you know that little 40% usually gets cut first.
Yes.
So how do you stop that from happening? Because that's where, you have to get pragmatic, and usually that's where stakeholders get you.
Yeah, so what is the 50-40-10 first? So I usually, when I talk about delight, I distinguish between 3 types of delight. There is what I call the low delight, there is the deep delight, and there is the surface delight. So low delight is when a feature is only solving for a functional need. I want to send an SMS, I want to book a flight, and the features is solving for that functional need. Think about it, that's low delight, no emotion involved. Surface delight, I'm going straight to the far right, is when a feature is only solving for an emotional need. There is definitely no functional need. Like the other day, it was my birthday, and Apple Watch sent me a notification with balloons saying, "Happy birthday, Nesrine." Is there any functional element there? No. But is it bad? I mean, why not? It's bringing me joy. It's a way of thinking about me.
And connecting.
And connecting as well. So that's surface delight. In the middle, there is another category that I call deep delight. And deep delight happens when you create a product experience that blends both emotional connection, emotional needs combined with functional needs.
Yeah.
And that's how this deep delight concept happened. I'm going to give you an example. Like, did it happen to you in the past when you send an email and you say like, I'm attaching this file, and then you forget?
Yeah.
And then, you feel like stupid, and you have to send an email again and say, "Oh, sorry, I forgot the file. Here it is now." And a feature like Google Meet saying, "Hey, I think you are forgetting to attach the file, that notification." I think it's a great example of deep delight, because it's about, of course, sending email, which is a functional need, but also it's about making you feel less embarrassed, right?
True.
So combining those two create the deep delight. Now, what I'm saying by 50-40-10 is that ideally your roadmap has to look like 50% low delight. Yes, your product has to function. Yeah. So let's make sure that 50% is these must-haves, these things that have to function. Like in Spotify, think about it as skip button. Like you can't live without skip button. Is it emotional? Definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay. Why not 40% is deep delight? What is deep delight? Again, we are about function here, but we are doing it in a good way.
That actually brings value.
Exactly. We are still honoring the functional need, but combined with emotion. And it's only 10%. It's only 10%. For why not those smile moments? These delight moments that, okay, it's not functional, but it's so beneficial for your brand, for your personality. That's what people will remember in the product as well. So think about Wrapped. Wrapped as a feature at Spotify is a pure surface delight feature. Does it bring any functional need? No, it's all about making you feel cool about yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it had a huge impact on Spotify as a whole. So that's the distribution of 50-40-10. And whether it's hard to achieve, no, because I'm still telling you, bring value to your customer, bring value to the business. Deep delight has a huge impact on your business metrics. And by the way, you asked me about stakeholders, etc. Emotional connection is the element that brings the highest impact to your business metrics. Have you checked like a report from Capgemini, McKinsey, Deloitte, Harvard Business Review? They all came to the same conclusion. Emotional connection impacts retention, revenue. Yes, I know people love talk about revenue, and referral, meaning that it will double your referral, it will double your revenue, and it will double your retention. People will stay longer. So I'm very, very convinced that by integrating these emotions into your functionality, you will make your product better, but you will also impact your business metrics.
But referral is all about that.
It's all about that.
The more you like the product, the more you become an advocate, and the more the product sells itself.
You don't have to, they will do the work for you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you work on emotional connection, you get like a subset of users who really loves your product. They will become your ambassadors. Like think about, we spoke about Wrapped, but Wrapped is a great example in this context. Like I know Wrapped started as a marketing campaign more than a feature itself, but it is built in a way that people feel so good about it so that they will share.
Yeah.
And since they share, you see it. And then, I mean, it goes viral by itself. You don't have to do a lot about that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's funny you should mention email. I'm not going to spoil because literally my next guest has a product around emails, and his job, he switched. His mission was always the same, but he crystallized what you're saying right now, and his mission is now, as of late, to make email fun again. And honestly, he does a great job. Like, I'm testing his product. It's wonderful. And email for me has been something that, you always have too much when you work in big companies. Like, there's a lot. It takes your time. And I found myself with his product going back and being hyped about looking at my emails, which is something that, makes absolutely no sense. If you were to, 2 months ago, I wouldn't have thought that. But Delight is where I think he'll make a difference because, again, like, I want to go there and I want to use the product, and you know what? People recommend that product afterwards and it sells itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to me, it does make an absolute difference.
It is really interesting that you're bringing this, because we sometimes think about some topics as they used to be boring, so they have to stay boring. And the other day I had the question of, okay, but Delight, could it really apply on B2B, or is it more a B2C thing? And it's like, it's not because we are used to have boring B2B software that they have to remain as boring as they are today. And the big change that is happening nowadays is that we are so much exposed to a lot of B2C product that the expectation and the bar is getting even higher. We can't accept having boring B2B software products. And that's why big company like Miro, B2B, Atlassian, B2B, they are investing so heavily. Like, I had a great chat with them recently on how to add these emotional connection into their products. So whether it's email or B2B or hardware, the space for emotional connection and delight is really, really present and is taking off.
Yeah, but I do agree. I've been working for the past 2 years and a half. We've redone the whole product for an e-commerce company, and it's 100%, not 100%, but close to 100% B2B. People are used to their B2C. It's e-commerce. So you shop online, you go on Amazon, whatever, and they're so used to their B2C experience that they're expecting a B2C experience, even though it's B2B. So we've worked on all of these B2B, specificities to like pinpoint them and try to make them as smooth as possible to get closer, as you said, to a better emotional connection. That's interesting that you would bring that up, because I do feel that as a reality, people expect a B2C experience.
Think about Slack.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Why do people love Slack?
Yeah.
And even when they change from a company to another, they will do their best to convince their new boss to bring Slack to the office, because they feel like they can't live without it.
Yeah.
And Slack was born, I know it was born from a gaming industry, but it was born with that mindset of delighting customers and bringing that joy and making it fun. Also, why not? Okay, I read recently an article saying that the number one feature used by Slack is, could you guess?
No.
Custom emojis.
Oh, yeah.
The custom emojis.
Like, I use it on Notion a lot. Yeah.
Like, I was really, it's funny because the product itself is for sending chats and sending messages, but then you realize that the feature number one used by the community is what? Is customizing and creating their own emojis. So that's why you should invest in the 10% of the service
it makes a lot
delight.
of sense. And it can be a differentiator,
Of
honestly,
course.
at some point.
Of course.
So most PMs, usually, they're pretty good at knowing what the user needs to do, but bad at knowing how they feel. So is there one specific question that you usually, ask users to unlock these like hidden emotions?
It's not one question. It is a habit that you need to start doing with your users. So, for example, if you have a user who is really, really frustrated, and you realize that the feature number one used by the community is what? Is customizing and creating their own emojis. So that's why you should invest in the 10% of the service delight.
No,
there are two ways of asking questions and interviewing your users. You can ask them about their problems and ask them about their behavior and how they use the product, or you can try to read between the line and understand the emotional impact of what they are talking about.
Yeah.
So, for example, I might ask you, tell me about your experience using the product. I can also ask you tell me about the last time you used the product and walk me through how you felt during the journey. So I'm already encouraging you to share what you felt. I know users are not always very open to share their feelings, so maybe you can try to interpret that yourself. I'm going to share a story. When I worked for Google Chrome, my last product I worked on was Google Chrome, I had to work on one of the biggest challenges of Google Chrome. The biggest challenge on Google Chrome, on mobile specifically, is tab management. Actually, we know and we knew from data that I'm really saying a lot of our users are having many tabs open at the same time.
I have to say I churned to Arc. I'm not going to lie, I churned to Arc.
Okay, maybe you had a good reason for that.
The tab management, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And at least we were aware that it is a challenge, and not every user keep tabs open for a good reason. Of course, for those who feel like organized and they need to organize their tabs, they will keep some opens as a reminders or to-do lists or whatever. But for most people who really have like hundreds or thousands of tab open, those keep them because they just don't see them anymore. And of course, that reflection started as a technical issue. We don't want users to have thousands of tab opens. It takes memory, it takes space, it slows performance. It's not ideal. So how do we solve that? How do we can't force people to close their tabs.
Yeah.
Also, if we close their tabs on their behalf, we will kill the trust. I mean, when we interviewed a lot of users, we realized that there is a relationship with a big R. Mm-hmm. It's like when I mean relationship between themselves and their tabs, they would tell you, don't touch my tab. Like, don't even dare replacing them or like changing the orders or whatever, because they feel like there is a big thing. Okay, we will not touch their tabs. So we interviewed them, and your question is about interviews, and we sit with them and we said, could you walk us through how you navigate through your tabs? Mm-hmm. Let's imagine you want to find a tab. How do you do that? And we looked at the behavior, of course, but we also paid extra attention to how they felt during the exercise. Mm-hmm. Some of them felt like anxious. Some of them felt lost. Some of them felt ashamed by the fact that they had so many tabs open, of course. And so we took those emotional cues into account. I mean, you as a product leader or UX researcher or whoever is doing the interview has to take these cues into account and take notes out of those. And then you have to build the solution that is aligned with those cues. So think about it as still do your users interview, but pay extra attention to what the user is feeling during the exercise, not just to what he's saying or to what he's doing.
Gotcha. And you mentioned you had an experience with Deliveroo, for Mother's Day, and that, not just you, but a lot of people. For a small team without a lot of resources, how can they check if their, delightful idea might actually backfire or hurt someone?
Yeah. So in the book, I created a framework that I'm calling the Light Model, and it operates into 4 steps. The very first step is to identify what motivates users, both on the functional element, but also on the emotional element. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to convert those motivators into real product opportunities. Step number 3 is to turn these opportunities into delightful solutions. And I'm, of course, giving a lot of insight how to do that. But the step number 4, which for me was extremely important for the framework, is how to validate delight. Why? Because delight is an emotion. Delight by itself is an emotion. And when we are dealing with emotions, there is always a high risk of messing things up, right? So what pleases me is not what is necessarily something that will please you. What makes me happy is not necessarily what makes you happy. Even myself, what makes me happy today is not necessarily what will make me happy next week. So it's really, really important to be inclusive in that sense. And inclusiveness was one of the fundamental elements of the fourth step of the framework. So at the fourth step, I created a checklist that I'm calling the Light Excellence Checklist. So it's a list of elements that we have to work through. It's called checklist because it's a real checklist. And you need, once you have an idea that is supposed to delight, you need to go through this list and say, first element, does it make impact to my business? Because again, delight is not an excuse to add confetti. It has to be aligned with your business goal.
Yeah.
Does it make a good impact to the user? Yes. Does it bring distraction? I don't want it to bring distraction. It has to be helpful, not destructive. So it's a yes and no. And there is one element called inclusiveness. Like, does it bring any harm? Have you checked that nobody will be impacted negatively or offended by this feature? And you brought this example of Deliveroo, because it's a real thing. Actually, just to share with our audience today, Deliveroo last year tried to be delightful. And so what they did, they on Mother's Day here in France, it's only a French campaign, by the way, they sent a notification to their users' mobile. And the notification looked exactly like missed call from your mom, like literally.
Yeah.
It says like appel manqué de maman. So it's a missed call from your mom. And it's embarrassing because when you see it, you don't know if is it a real call happening or what. And then you press on it, you say, hey, it's Mother's Day. Think about sending flower to your mom. We can do it on your behalf. So it's a marketing campaign at the same time. But it had the worst press coverage in France. Why? Because not everyone felt the joy by seeing such a notification. Some had the feeling that it was funny, joyful, etc. But others had the feeling of grief and sorrow and sadness because they can't have the luxury of seeing such a missed call notification anymore. So for me, that's an example of when delight goes wrong, is because it's not inclusive. And so we need to avoid these kind of things by maybe using the Delight Excellence Checklist. The Delight Excellence Checklist will try to help you avoid falling into the most common traps, like one of the distraction I said earlier. Delight doesn't have to be destructive. It has to be almost invisible. So maybe the best answer is to try the checklist for that.
And does that mean that if you're working for a company, like the more niche the market, the easier I'm going to say it is to create delightful features? I'll take an example. If you're working at Spotify, I mean, you have a lot of personas in terms of users. Whereas if you're talking about a company that's pretty niche, that only works for developers, then your persona is pretty much the same. So you can maybe have a better chance of delighting people. So do you think, again, it's easier for those companies, or?
I mean, you can also make the choice of delighting a certain persona today, and maybe next quarter I will try to. I mean, you can distribute delight. You can't necessarily like provide a feature that delight all people at the same time. But the condition is not to like hurt anyone or offense anyone. Yeah. I mean, that feature, if it is delighting you, bingo, great, that's well done. But I will only ship it if there is no impact on other personas in a negative way.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So about metrics again. So at Google, as you said, your title was literally Delight PM. And if a PM at a smaller company wants to do this alone, what's the one simple habit that they should start tomorrow?
I would say the very first thing you can start tomorrow, and without even having leadership approval or thumb up or whatever, is to start listing emotional motivators in addition to the functional motivators of your users. So let me tell you how to do that. When we do segmentation, and we just spoke about personas, I've seen in action 3 types of segmentation. There is the, of course, demographic segmentation, which relates to the who they are from a gender perspective, language perspective, location perspective. These are all the who. The second type of segmentation is the behavioral segmentation, which is much better. It's about the what. What are they doing with the product? Are they using certain features versus others? Are they using it in the morning versus in the afternoon? So that's the behavioral segmentation. But the very best one I've seen in action is the motivational segmentation. It's the why. And it might be surprising because you might think of building a product for a reason, but your users are using your product for different reasons. And you need to identify those whys. And those whys could be functional, as we said, sending an SMS, booking a flight, booking a hotel, listening to music, creating a playlist. These are functional motivators. But you also might have some emotional motivators. For example, it happens to me that I open Spotify because I feel lonely. I want to get some company. It happens to me that I also listen to music to feel some nostalgia or update my mood or whatever. I mean, these are emotional motivators. And what I highly recommend people to start with today is to have a spreadsheet where they list regularly, and I really call it a live document. It's never a dead document.
Yeah.
Where you put a huge list of your functional motivators, and then you also have a column, a dedicated column to identify the emotional motivators of your users. Why? Because by starting this exercise, you become aware that your users do have emotional needs as well. And next time when you will start building a feature or when you start brainstorming on the feature, you will think deep delight. You will not think low delight anymore. You will still bring value from a functional perspective, but you will build it in a way that it's aligned with those emotional motivators. And I hope this answered quite well your question, because a lot of people would say, yeah, but I don't have approval. I don't have thumb up. I don't have like a buy-in. Do you really need a buy-in from the way how I described it now?
I think it's the other way around. That's why I'm asking the question, because most people expect, approval before. I think it's a wonderful model to prove and get buy-in after you've actually proven that that you can get something out of that. So if you do that and you show there's value, then you'll get it.
You will get the value. The only thing I would say here is that the value is not immediate. I know we as a product builder, we are impatient. Yeah. We want to build a feature and we want to see the impact on metrics next quarter, or maybe next week if we can. When it comes to emotional connection, it's something that requires you to be patient. You will see, I guarantee, you will see impact on your business metric, but it might take maybe 2 quarters, a year. Why? Because we're talking about building trust. We are talking about referral. We are talking about building a personality, a brand that people will love. The love will never happen. I mean, we're not talking about good food here. We're talking about like a building trust over time. So I would say be patient, at least 6 months, maybe at best 1 year, to really get that emotional connection. And you know what? When you hit it, you will start seeing a lot of benefits from that.
Nice. Usually when we talk about, I think we mistake that emotional side with metrics like the NPS, for example. And everyone hates NPS, and retention takes too long to measure. So is there a simple leading indicator or a number that we can look at every week to make sure that your product is actually delighting people?
So I agree with you. NPS will never ever tell you anything about users' love. It's so broad. It's about the perception. It's about our maybe overall reflection on the product. So it's really hard to move first and also to reflect users' love. I mean, remember, we're talking about emotional connection and people loving the product. So for example, at Google, we did measure users' love and happiness and joy, etc. So I guess there is a framework very much well known nowadays in the product space. It's called HEART. And HEART stands for happiness, engagement, adoption, task success. And the first H is happiness. And I've seen a lot of people trying to use HEART as a framework. The problem is that they use everything under the H, like engagement, adoption, task success, etc. But since they don't know how to measure happiness, they just don't measure it. But at Google, we measure happiness. We had a metric called HATS. It's Happiness Tracking Survey. HATS. And it's a survey that you will see. Let's imagine we're shipping a new feature. It's a very new feature, and we want to assess if people are satisfied or happy. What's the emotional impact this feature is having on them? So when you see the feature for the first time, you get a pop-up, and that pop-up directs you to a survey if you're interested to get into that, and it will answer you quite emotional questions to assess your emotional impact due to this interaction with the feature. And the reason why it's called tracking survey, the T thing, is because we believe that emotions vary over time. I mean, there's this concept of being surprised first and then you're not. So we try to assess the happiness not only once, but also we try to assess it through times to make sure that we are still bringing you value. We are still satisfying your emotional needs. So the good news is that HATS, for example, has been published as a research paper. So it was born out of a research lab at Google, and then it was published publicly, so people can see the full list of surveys if they want to implement such a thing. But I just want to recommend that, yes, happiness can be measured.
It's a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing.
So to maybe focus on something that obviously is part of our everyday life now, AI. We're in a world where it does most of the work for us. And let's say the buttons on the screen disappear. It's more of like an interface where you just chat. How do you create delight when there's, again, no interface?
Yeah. I'm going to share an example with you where there's not even almost no product. I mean, there is a product, but you can still experience delight. There's a product called Buffer. So Buffer is that a social media for small businesses, and it's a B2B product. And it's a social media management platform. And very recently, I've seen an email, I've been using it as a user myself, but the reality is that I subscribed, I started to pay for it, and I didn't really use it for months. I thought I would be using it, but for months I didn't use it myself. So I received an email a couple of months later, almost 6 or 7 months later. They said, "Hey, Nesrine, we really value that you trusted us and you subscribed to our service, but we've seen that for 7 months you haven't used the product at all. We understand that you're a small business and you might probably forgot to unsubscribe or to maybe cancel your subscription. So we want to offer you a full refund of the period you haven't used the product at all." That was an email of a pure delight. It's like, hey, the product cares about me, cares about the fact that I'm paying for nothing. I mean, and that gave me almost the need to not cancel. You see the impact?
Yeah,
it's
of course.
Thank you so much. And of course I canceled because I realized that, at that moment I didn't need. But then I know for sure if I want to get back to them, the trust is built already. So it's not 100% aligned with your question in terms of interface, but I wanted to highlight that it's not about the interface. It's about how you want to make your users feel while using the product. That's one thing. The other example I want to bring today is I was using Copilot, and since we're talking about AI, and I was running out of internet. And delight can also be in the UX writing as well.
Yeah.
Actually, the message was that it's not you, it's us. And we're working on it. I know it's me. I'm not having internet, but we are very far away from that blue screen that scared us all when we had been running out of an issue.
The dinosaur on Google.
Yeah, the dinosaur was a quite interesting innovation in that time. But the fact that they are unblaming me, I felt like, okay, there is a feeling of trust. There is a feeling of feeling good while using the product. So now delight happens when we are making people feel comfort and feeling good while using the product. It's not in the joyful moments, the Easter egg again, or the confetti. It's about the entire experience that we want the user to enjoy or to experiment.
It's funny you should talk about that. I wrote a post lately because I was feeling that, I'm using a bunch of different tools, but Lovable, of course, being such a crazy unicorn that just keeps on growing. I was starting to feel that everything sort of looked the same. And AI is it's predictive models. So you're not really innovating. You're gathering everything that people think and people say. And so with that kind of model, how do you make sure you have that emotional connection? Because I feel that everything's starting to look the same, and we're sort of like AI right now at the way it's going, it's streamlining everything. So how do you get out of this?
Thank you for pointing to this. I'm one of those rare people who rarely talk about AI these days.
I respond to your posts.
Yeah, I know. I feel like sometimes forced to talk about AI, but Of course, I do believe in the value, and I, of course, enjoy using AI tools, and I use Lovable as well. And I can't say other thing that these are amazing tools. The challenge I see is exactly what you're talking about. Like, of course, with AI, we're getting a speed. We are building much, much faster. But here's the trap. Everyone else as well have the same speed. And remember I said earlier that when we build a product, users do have emotional needs and they have functional needs. And I have a feeling that AI is making the functional needs go much, much faster, much more performant. We can build products in days, in weeks. But here's the trap. If we all focus on that speed, if we all focus on building on those products, we are forgetting about the emotional element, and we get into very similar products.
Yeah.
We get into very robotic product as well, and that's not where we want to head to, right? We want to still use and experiment great products. So it's not about speed. Of course, people are excited like ever these days about building fast and building prototypes in hours, but this is just a game for now. People are just playing with them. The products that will win and will continue win are those who started by investing in emotion from the start, and they are keep investing on it. Like they are not stopping. I know like a lot of big companies who invested early on emotions, and they started to have a fear, oh my God, like other products are going faster. But then they are getting themselves so well established among their community, and they are getting the trust from their customers that even with the less speed, they will never lose because they will stand out thanks to this emotional connection. So I would say, yes, it's a trap. I will let people enjoy the game for now.
Yeah.
But the race is not about who's going faster. It's about who's keeping their emotion in the roots.
But you know what? Because I talk a lot about PMs becoming more hybrid.
Yeah.
Could this be something that actually differentiates you from competition? Meaning, it's going to be easier to code. It already is. Like you can do everything with cursor. It's crazy. It's going to become easier to code. The emotional connection is something that you'll never take away. You'll still have to be talking to the users to know how they feel. And is that aspect of being able as a skill set, to create an emotional connection, is this something also that could save your job?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is the right thing we need to talk about now, is because I see delight as your differentiator. I mean, we live in a crowded tech market, and it's getting even more and more crowded. And the only way that will make your product stand out, the only thing that will differentiate your product is this element that not everyone is caring about. And I will give you an example. Let's imagine that you're using product A because it's convenient, because you're getting the functional element you needed from there. And tomorrow, I offer you product B for a little bit cheaper. If you have no emotional connection with product A, you're just using it for the functional perspective, you can easily move to product B. However, if product A invested already in emotional connection, we are personalizing your product, we are offering you more than the function, but we are making you feel so good and so happy using the product, then even with a bit cheaper product B, you will think twice or 3 times or 4 times before moving to product B, because the emotional connection, we said earlier, that has a huge impact on retention. It's making you staying longer and recommending the product, etc. So yes, emotional connection is your differentiator, first from a product perspective, but also from a human perspective, because if we care about our job as a PM, AI is not doing a great job when it comes to identifying emotional needs these days. Not yet. I don't know. At least I tried. It didn't work so well. And I gave you this example, for example, how we identified emotional cues while interviewing Chrome users. We can't get those by asking AI tools these days. So I think that's the element that will remain. We still need our job because we are the person who can talk person to person and identify emotions from those persons.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it basically predicts the next word. So unless people are talking on LinkedIn or whatever and are openly, discussing these topics, which doesn't always happen, then you won't get that result. You'll have to, dig and try to get this from users.
Absolutely. I mean, I will give you maybe an example that will talk to you. Think about the best gift you received.
Best gift I've received.
The best gift you received
Their
so far.
experiences.
It's not the most expensive one, but definitely not the random one. You know,
That's the personalized one.
It's the personalized, the one that you feel heard and seen and represented. It's like, I mean, that's exactly what my taste is about.
True.
That's exactly what I was looking for. And so I ask people sometimes, what if you also treat your users the same? Your product is a gift. Do you want your product to be a random product, or do you want it to be like, wow, that's exactly what I needed? It feels heard and seen and represented.
I agree.
So if you shift your mindset and start thinking that way, then your product will love you. Your users will love you. They will talk about it. They will tell the word about it. And then you're good to go with your product for years.
Yeah, that's true. It's amazing. If you were to look back, what's one delightful that you were sure that was going to work and actually flopped when it hit the real world?
I would say a couple of them. We tried a lot, and I at least had the luxury of working in an environment where we encourage failures.
Which is great.
Really, like when we say fail fast, but also correct fast and learn fast, and we want to fail faster than anyone else. This is what Daniel Ek said at Spotify. And it's not just words said in the press. It's something that we lived by. So we did a couple of trials that, of course, some of them get fixed. Some of them just didn't get shipped. Yeah. But I can share some examples. So, for example, when I worked for Google Meet, we tried to bring in some joyful animations. And we've been working on background replace. We first brought background replace as an image. And then I don't know if you used it, but immersive background, where as if you're holding like an object, especially for seasonal events, like when it was Diwali or Christmas, we put you a Christmas hat. It was fun. People loved them. But I remember there was one specific effect that we wanted to ship, and it was amazing. The design was really nice. But when we started testing it, there was one skin tone, among really hundreds of skin tones, one skin tone that didn't work. It gave a weird effect, like we called it shrimp effect, or like it felt really bad. And we didn't ship it for one skin tone. That's from an inclusive perspective, because we want to make sure that whatever effect or joy we want to bring, it has to bring that joy for everyone. If there is one person that felt hurt or not represented, then it was really hard for me as a PM to kill the feature, because we tried our best. It just didn't work on one skin tone. So that's to give you the example that we had to be inclusive because we cared about being inclusive. The other example is still within the background replace. We, after static image, we started doing video backgrounds. And the video background in the beginning moved a lot. Yeah. And we started to see after shipping it that some people felt like challenge concentrating during the call. So we had to adapt that as well and remove the speed and make it more smooth, etc. So it's okay to fail if you correct quickly behind and you come up with a good intention.
Gotcha. And and is there maybe a final question? Is there such a thing as anti-delight? Are there times where it's actually better for the business to make a user a little bit frustrated, let's say?
I hate it, but sometimes you have to. I mean, one example of anti-delight is like when I worked for Google Chrome is to give you ads on the page. Yeah. You're browsing and you're seeing ads on the page, but also it's the unique business model.
That is the business model.
It is frustrating, but we have to, when we work on anti-delight, and sometimes as PMs, you have to work on anti-delight. You have to dose in a way that you should not get into the hate zone, like people should not start to hate you. They have to, but at the same time, you have to compensate, give them the best value with that anti-delight so they stick with you and they still love you at the same time and forgive you. Yeah. Also, same for Spotify. When I work for Spotify, I work for premium, but also I work for freemium. And for freemium, we had to...
All the ads,
Not only the ads, we also limit the skip number. You
Yeah.
can't skip forever. And I know how people hate that, but at the same time, it's our way of encouraging, giving you enough value,
Yeah.
but not too much so that you can move to the pet
Version.
business
Yeah.
where we are also, I mean, don't forget, we are building products for business. Yes, we're building it for users. We want the user to experience the best experience ever. But also, if we don't make money out of that, there will be no business very soon. So if you have to do or to work on anti-delight, it's okay. But just make sure that you're bringing enough value so people will forgive you about that. Because people will not be happy about it. So think
Okay.
about how can they forgive you about that.
That's no, but I definitely agree. Wow. Maybe to wrap things up, a couple of really rapid fire questions. Would you take a bad UX and wonderful UI, or a really good UX that really solves the problem, but a bad UI?
UX and bad UI.
So.
You're making me say that. I hate it, but great UI and bad user experience will never fly. The opposite, you have chances at least.
Honestly, when it really solves the problem, sometimes you can have terrible UI, but really solve the problem and still delights, even though certain products, are not that good looking.
People are not stupid.
Yeah.
They get it. However, if you're making a very shiny, nice, colorful UI and no value behind,
Yeah.
it will not stick. Absolutely not.
What's the best example that you've gotten? Because on LinkedIn and all your social media, you ask people to send you examples of delights. Do you have something that's not in the book, like one example that you found really nice, like someone that sent you, oh, this was a delight and it's really good?
I had some positive and negative moments as well. I mean, those who shared those special stories, they shared also stories that made them feel negative as well. The story that hit me most was from a friend who said who shared the story from using WhatsApp messages. And so she was talking about her brother who passed away. And so she felt extremely sad about that period of her life. And so once she was scrolling to see pictures on WhatsApp, and she found a picture of her brother holding her baby at that time. So she pressed on the image to get it because she realized that she didn't save it at any time. And you know what? The message was the message was, please text the name of the person to get the image. So how can you feel like when you're asked by the product to send a message with the name of that person to get the image? She told me literally, I hated WhatsApp at that moment. I didn't want to use it anymore.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So maybe there is another way of saying it in different words.
Okay. And a final question, because you wrote a book. I love books.
Yes.
So apart from yours, which I highly recommend, what's really one great book that maybe changed your life or you would recommend to anyone? It doesn't have to be product.
There's one particular book that I followed throughout my entire career. It's called Pivot. I just, by the way, published a LinkedIn post about that because I realized that it was so beneficial in my life that I said, hey, maybe people can benefit from it. It has nothing to do with product, but it's a career thing. It's like how throughout our career we can move on while at the same time making benefit of our strength and also sometimes pivoting and changing to where we want to go.
Yeah.
So it's called Pivot, and it explains exactly how when you have a vision in mind, how you get there, but not by being stubborn, but by pivoting and using and exploiting your strength. So Pivot stands for, she makes this image of basketball player. When you are about to play, you always have one leg where you have strength and like you have to focus on, and then the other leg will make you turn. And that's exactly how you want to do your career as well. Like always figure out what's your strength, capitalize on that, and then
shot.
It's okay. Yeah, make the shot and move on. It's okay. And that's what I did. Like, for example, we started this conversation, like I said, hey, I did research on signal processing. I realized that, hey, I have strength on signal processing. So I moved to Skype video. And that's exactly how they benefit from my value at the other time. And then when I was about to move completely career from product leader to author and trainer as today, I had to take the benefit of the entire experience I did so far and also put it in other area.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for all your insights. I'm super happy I got you on the podcast, and thank you for accepting.
Thank you. Thanks, Cedric.
And that's a wrap for today. Merci beaucoup for listening to this episode. I highly suggest you follow Nesrine if it isn't the case yet. And if you feel that she could be of use to your organization, she's done dozens of keynotes and workshops with product teams to help them take their game to the next level. And something else, buy the book. It's filled with really good insights that'll make a difference for you and your users. And I'm not even getting paid for this to say this. But before you close this tab, I have a challenge for you. Open your current roadmap, look at your next sprint. How many of those features are low delight utility? How many are deep delight? And solving a functional problem while making the user feel seen. And if your deep delight column is empty, it's time to pivot. Thanks for watching, and go build something delightful.